Hey there, wrestling fans, it is I, CM Jew, the most glorious Jew that ever lived, your wrestling rabbi, and undisputed Jewish wrestling champion. So just sit back and just bask in my glory, bros. Because I'm here with the lovely Jessica, and on this episode, we head back to the hot deserts of Phoenix to see a takeover in progress. And we're in particular to ask ourselves if Johnny Takeover can one-up the one and only. And a black heart refuse to fade to black. All this and the question that everybody wants to ask. And that's just how badly did the men and women of NXT embarrass the main roster. This and more in this episode of CM Jew's Wrestling Reviews.
I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even at commentary. Nobody can touch me.
And welcome back to episode 101 of CM Jew's Wrestling Reviews. I'm, of course, CM Jew, as you already know. And on this episode, yes, we are going back to Phoenix for NXT Takeover Phoenix. The boys and girls of NXT once again tore the entire house down. It was a magnificent show to watch. And again, it's one of those things where it's really unfair for, all the guys and girls on the main roster, because NXT TakeOver gets all this praise and they're trying their damnedest, but certain situations, and we'll get to the review of the Royal Rumble at a later date, but NXT TakeOver Phoenix also had a hard line to follow because it had to follow NXT War Games and NXT Brooklyn and Chicago and New Orleans and just continue the trend of NXT takeovers saying, hold my beer as I top the last takeover. And oh boy, did they ever. Not completely all the way. Some matches for certain particular reasons that we'll get to, because they were more of a learning curve and more of a test. Didn't have the same oomph, but still, again, as always with NXT, it's one of those situations where any one of these matches could main event any pay-per-view card of any independent wrestling show. They're that good. And I just don't mean because of the wrestlers in it. I mean, if you were to take that match and put it on as the main event of an independent card, the fans would go home happy, But I could just say that. Let me show you that. Let's get into our first match of the evening. Tag team match for the NXT Tag Team Championship. Hanson and Rowe, the War Raiders, versus Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, the Undisputed Era. Well, it happened once again. The NXT Tag Team division put their balls on the table and dared the rest of the NXT card to follow that. Now, follow that. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But again, yeah. I just love the NXT Tag Team division and the fact that they get an opportunity every takeover to steal the show with the opening match of the show. And there's also some story development here between the War Raiders and Undisputed Era, more in particular the Undisputed Era, that I really like with this match. Now, the past couple of sort of one-on-one team versus team contests that they've had with Mustache Mountain and the Pan Am Connection, which is Oni Loken and not Paul Burch. I just thought it was Paul Burch. Danny Burch, excuse me. They've been more this sort of classical tag team style to where it was, face and heel, face has the upper hand till the heel cheats to get the upper hand, and then the build and build and build to the hot tag. But of course what they would do is they would do that, and then instead of getting the hot tag and letting the incoming face partner build towards the finish, they would then get beat down and, rinse, repeat till you finally decide to build towards the finish. And you get these epic 20 to 30 minute contests. Of course, the one match sort of wasn't like that was back in Philadelphia, to where they were facing the Authors of Pain, which was more of a contest of the Undisputed Era trying to stay out of the grasp and out of the power game of the Authors of Pain, using their superior wrestling skill and their veteran status and experience, I should say, to overcome the inexperience and sort of the lack of speed that AOP had. The thing is, the War Raiders, which, by the way, before I go any further, that Viking entrance with Sarah Logan in there, absolutely awesome. Loved it. Great way to start the show. But in a way, War Raiders are like AOP, except that they're more agile, more faster, and they have just as much experience as O'Reilly and Roderick Strong. And that really was the difference here, because it was sort of that same type of more of a sort of Texas Tornado style match where they never got counted out, but there was a lot of, the other partner coming in and cutting off the other wrestler and everything to, keep the War Raiders off balance. In particular, once they got, I believe it was Hansen. I'm trying to remember which one. It was either Hansen, I believe actually it was Rowe, that they had in. And they were beating him down, and they kept him in their corner and beat him down. And every time he tried to power up and then go make a tag, he'd get cut off, and they did everything possible. But eventually he was able to tag in Hansen, who, again, beat them down. And while the Undisputed Era was trying to get that upper hand, again, the agility and the experience, and for that matter, heart in some cases, of Hansen didn't let the War Raiders down. And eventually they were able to, I think it was in particular, they were going the Undisputed Era for their finish, and that cartwheel out of it by Hansen, and then that turned everything around, and then the build towards the finish. It was just a bombastic match from start to finish, and it had this sort of uncontrollable, war nature, as opposed to sort of the more traditional tag match that you saw with Undisputed Era versus Mustache Mountain and the Pam and Connection. And again, going back to AOP, where their experience and their speed and agility overcame those weak points of the AOP, the War Raiders were able to match that here, and that really was the difference that led the War Raiders to overcoming the Undisputed Era. And I love that sort of depth of storytelling that we got to see here. Just absolutely amazing match, a classic tag team battle that's different from the classics that they had with Mustache Mountain and the like. And again, just it dared the rest of the card to top that, as it just, the crowd was so into the match. And that's another thing I think that the main roster crowd, and I'm talking about the crowd at main roster shows, I think learn from NXT takeovers, is that the crowd is always into it. And the thing is, if you want a match to be good, sometimes you need the crowd to be into it. Because the crowd can make an okay match an awesome match just by being into it. And so, props to the entire crowd in Phoenix for being absolutely into every match on the show. Even if it took them a while to get into it, but still they were into it. So, absolutely amazing opening tag match by War Raiders and Undisputed Era. And of course, your new NXT Tag Team Champions, the War Raiders. Let's get into match number 2. Special grudge match. The Knockout Artist, Cassius Ohno versus the King of Bros, Matt Riddle. Moving on to match 2, of course, we have Matt Riddle versus Cassius Ohno. And a lot of, I think the really good storytelling going into this match happened when, with all the build-up, with the the quick match at NXT War Games, some quick matches on NXT TV, the run-ins, the attacks from behinds, all of that I think really helped towards the build of this match, of like it being this real fight. And we finally got the lengthy match between Ono and Riddle, and it was so good. Really what helps it stand out is that it's so different from any of the other matches on the card, which have a lot more pure wrestling in them. Here has a lot more mixed martial arts, a lot more striking into it, and really blends the line between sort of a true sort of shoot fight and the art of professional wrestling, as you will, in a way. But overall, it was just a really, really good match. Unfortunately, compared to sort of the other matches, maybe not the best. But again, it's stiff competition. I mean, what you can do. But I did love sort of the back and forth nature of the match, and ultimately that finish, something again you really don't get to see, and it really takes advantage of the idea of making those elbows look really dangerous and making them look like a threat to end the match at any time. And you hear the announcers and the commentators talk about, that the referee stoppage. When was really the last time you saw a referee stoppage as far as a person being knocked out? It puts more validity into them saying that now, because yes, we've seen an opponent be knocked out basically by Matt Riddle with those elbows. So I love that finish, as it allows sort of a reality to when the commentators talk about stuff like, the referee needs to maybe step in and possibly stop the fight for the safety of the wrestler, because you have that happen. And kudos to NXT, because they do that from time to time. And so they really allow that thing to actually be believed, as opposed to on main roster and really a lot of other places where commentators will talk about that, but you very rarely see it. So I really love the end of the match. And again, great back and forth. I think Ono and Riddle have great chemistry, and Ono was a great first opponent for Riddle in that sense. So really good match, really good end to their feud that they've been having for the past couple months. And really, they did a great job of making the match feel like a grudge match between these two wrestlers who really hated each other. So major props to them. Now, let's move on to the match that I'm going to gush relentlessly about all night long. Let's get into match number 3. Single match for the NXT North American Championship. Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Gargano versus the one and only future of Flight, Ricochet. We can always talk about the 5-star matches that we get every year, especially in recent years, that are great, that we will remember of the year in particular. But very rarely do you get matches that you feel 20, 30, 40 years from now are going to be remembered as one of the greatest of all time. In that same vein of matches like Mysterio versus Guerrero at Halloween Havoc 97, Benoit versus Angle at the 2003 Royal Rumble, Guerrero versus Lesnar at 2004 No Way Out, Flair versus Steamboat, Hogan versus Andre. Yes, I'm saying those matches because I believe that Johnny Gargano versus Ricochet for the NXT North American title deserves to be placed in that holy hall of greatest matches of all time. Because, oh my God, the game is over for the year, folks. This is your match of the year. Like, I don't know what else anybody can do that would be... Like, you can't be more perfect, because this match was pretty much absolute perfection. That's how great this match was. And I'm not putting out perfection in the sense of, like, on some technical point board. I mean, like, Because for me, the most important thing of any wrestling match, and any reason to book a match a certain way or anything, is the story. And as amazing as the maneuvers and as wonderful as the pure wrestling skill between Gargano and Ricochet was in this match, the story that they told with those maneuvers, with those flowing sequences of counter after counter after counter that they told of Johnny Gargano's descent into darkness. Because he couldn't beat Ricochet, because Ricochet was constantly one step ahead of him and was beating him at every turn. When he went high flying, Ricochet beat him at that. When he went to the ground, Ricochet beat him at that. Ricochet was a better wrestler. Ricochet was a better high flyer. At every turn, Johnny Gargano couldn't beat him, and he caused his final slow descent into the dark side. That story was a central part of this match, and that's what put this match over the top from not just being a 5-star match of the night, match of the year candidate, but puts it in that upper echelon of greatest matches of all time that people will remember. When people talk about the greatest matches ever in NXT, this match will be one of them. Right up there with Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Sami Zayn versus Neville, and others. Like, it's that damn good. It really is. I mean, yeah, we could sit here and talk about all the amazing maneuvers. The one-legged moonsault off the post as he jumped up to the apron off the post and did the moonsault with one leg by Ricochet. Amazing. My favorite maneuver of the night, because of the very small landing area that he gave himself, Ricochet going over the corner post, which is one of his classic maneuvers that you've seen him do on the independents all the time, but he's always had a much larger landing space and area to do it, especially if you watch PWG, excuse me. But here, just such a small space, just over the post, which is a little bit higher, and just cleared it and made it look easy. Everything Ricochet did, he made look easy, and just that confidence and charisma and flow just draws you into the match. And watching Johnny Gargano do everything and be as good as Johnny Gargano is, and never being able to get the upper hand on Ricochet throughout the match. He would have maybe flurries here and there, but he could never really gain control. And that caused him the descent, as I was saying with the story. And in particular, the way they finished the story with the telling of Johnny Gargano, he pulls up the mat. He's going to do to Ricochet just as Tommaso Ciampa did to him. But he thinks better of himself, and he thrusts the darkness away one more time. And it almost leads to him getting caught and rolled up for the pin, which leads to the next time he gets the advantage, he doesn't waste it and doesn't think about it. He just does it, and he DDTs Ricochet to the floor on that exposed concrete, and that allowing him to roll Ricochet in and hit that slingshot DDT for the win. The false finishes, everything. This match was just absolutely amazing, breathtaking, because it's the perfect combination of free-flowing, beautiful technical and high-flying wrestling skill with a beautifully woven story of not just the match, but of the characters of the match and what the match means to them. You will find no better, folks. This match was absolutely amazing, and this is your match of the year. It is over. Props to Ricochet and the new NXT North American Champion, Johnny Gargano, for taking our breath away and just absolutely making this match as amazing as it was. They deserve all the credit in the world for showing not just everybody in WWE, but everybody in AEW, in New Japan, and Ring of Honor, and everywhere. This is what professional wrestling looks like. This is professional wrestling and sports entertainment combined to tell a story within a match that takes your breath away. Absolutely amazing. We need to move on because I can stay here all night gushing about this match. Which means let's talk about the unfortunate bastards who had to foul. Let's talk about match 4.
Single match for the NXT Women's Championship. The EST, Bianca Blair versus the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler.
Now, I really feel bad for the women here. I really do. Like, it already had to be hard to follow up not just a match of the year, but a match that will live in the annals of wrestling history as one of the best of all time. But, you know, Bianca Blair and Shayna Baszler also had another thing going here, which is that, you know, this match was really much more about it being a test of Bianca Blair's ability to perform in the ring. Because, you know, you had all the veterans really now being moved up to the main roster with Nikki Cross and Lacey Evans, you know, going up. And so it really, at this point, like, Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler are the two veteran wrestlers. And with Bianca Blair being there and everybody else is only still developing their characters, whether they're veteran wrestlers like Mia Yim, who's just coming in and starting to develop her character in NXT, or those who've been there like Aaliyah, who, you know, hasn't really found their groove yet. And with Bianca Blair, she has been amazing people ever since she debuted in the first Mae Young Classic, and just people watched her and just been amazing. I mean, the hair whip, just an absolutely creative move that she pulls out of her own head, and only she can do. And so, her getting this opportunity to challenge for the title on a takeover was really much more about it being a test. I mean, we know Shayna Baszler's there and everything, and she is I don't want to pass it off like that's nothing. Like, she is an amazing wrestler, and she has come so far in her own growth. But this match was much more about Bianca Blair and her growth and seeing how far she's come and seeing if she can hang with the top players in NXT at the top of the card. And despite being put in an unfortunate situation to have to follow that magnificent, beautiful match that was Ricochet versus Johnny Gargano, I thought the girls killed it, and I thought Bianca Blair passed her test with not just flying colors, like acing, like the SATs type of passing with flying colors. Because that's what this test was like, the SATs, and she made it look easy. And just, it's amazing to see someone so young have such potential and have the ability, and very much the same way like Velveteen Dream, to see just how much they've learned at the Performance Center and at NXT, and how they are integrating that into their characters, and how amazing it is that they are such amazing wrestlers at such young ages. And I think she needs to work a little on her selling, but she sold that leg still amazingly well. And sold the arm as well. The arm in particular that really hurt her. And just the amount of punishment she took from Baszler was amazing. And then the start of that comeback with the hair whip. And great job by the camera crew to pick up that mark on Baszler's abdomen. Like, oh my God, when you heard it, you felt it, and it's like, oh my God, because that thing rang through that arena. Like, you were watching at home and you felt it. And so it was a really good match telling the story of Shayna Baszler, who really is that good, but too cocky for her own good, and so she ends up needing help to retain the title because she gets in her own way and gives her opponents opportunities to come back. And Bianca Blair was so driven that if her two friends, Maria and Jessica, hadn't got involved, she would have lost the title. And so showing Bianca Blair being able to hold her own against all three, but ultimately succumbing, makes her look strong even in defeat. So an amazing match. And again, props to Bianca Blair for passing her test with absolute flying colors. This will not be the last time we see her in a main event spot on NXT Takeover, whether it be challenging for the women's title or not. I mean, the fact that she's so young and this damn good is amazing. So props to Bianca Blair for passing that tremendously hard test, in particular when being put after the amazing match that came before. And of course, still your NXT Women's Champion, Shayna Baszler, a terrific job as well. And I hate to seem like I'm just blowing over Shayna Baszler's contributions in the match. She was amazing. She has come so far. It's amazing to see her growth as well. But like I said, this match was purely about Bianca Blair and seeing how far she had came as a wrestler. And my God, did she not disappoint. Just an amazing job by both women, but in particular, Bianca Blair. That leaves us with one last match for the NXT Championship. Let's get into the final match of the night.
Singles match for the NXT Championship. Alistair Black versus the Blackheart, Tommaso Ciampa.
So for our final match of the night for the NXT Championship, we had Alistair Black versus Tommaso Ciampa. And if there's one criticism of the match, that it took a while for the crowd to get into it and for the match to really get going. But once it did, it was just amazing. Again, really starting off, showing off the two different styles, the sort of the striking ability of Alistair Black and his technical wrestling skill, and sort of that combination of wrestling and sort of Muay Thai striking that he can do versus the dastardness and sort of the thinking wrestler that Tommaso Ciampa is. He really is somebody who will work on a body part and is looking for someone who's always looking for the weakness within a wrestler to attack, and sort of those mind games within the match that Tommaso Ciampa plays. So it was a little touch and go at the beginning, but once you got it, in particular once Tommaso Ciampa injured the leg and started working on the leg, the match really got going. And again, props to both wrestlers, because again, it's sort of that classic, we start off slow, but we build, and we build, and we build the match, and build the match, and we layer the match with maneuvers, maneuvers like Alistair Black did, the sort of the Ultimo. I just saw Ultimo Dragon actually do this on an episode of Nitro, to where Alistair Black did the moonsault, but then immediately went and did a suicide dive to catch Tommaso Ciampa off guard. Like, just the layers of adding new things that you've not seen the wrestler do before that are really amazing. And again, Tommaso Ciampa's constant working on a body part and the selling by Alistair Black of that leg and how it hampered him in maneuvers to where, there's a point where he tries to lift Tommaso Ciampa up with the foot to set up the Black Mass, can't do it. He couldn't hit the Black Mass at one point because he couldn't stand on the foot because that was his anchor leg. And of course, the finish also involved him not being able to stand on the leg and allowing Tommaso Ciampa to hit the fairy tale ending. Which, another thing, the fact that it took multiple fairy tale endings to defeat Alistair Black. I love that it showed that Alistair Black was the heart and the strength of Alistair Black, that it took more than one fairy tale ending to defeat him. It made it seem as if on any other night, Alistair Black is just plainly simple a better wrestler than Tommaso Ciampa, but Tommaso Ciampa's intelligence and ability to pick a body part and work on it helped him win the night. And so I love that sort of storytelling, and it was really in a way, a satisfying end of this sort of storyline between Tommaso Ciampa and Alistair Black that had been going on since the summer, with Alistair Black trying to chase Tommaso Ciampa down. And so, because the other thing is, I don't know where Alistair Black goes from here. I mean, certainly you have to think the main roster by after WrestleMania. But, yeah, it's just... It was a really good match that was a great way to end the night, and it just built and built upon itself. And again, the telling of that story of Alistair Black is the better wrestler, but the intelligence of Tommaso Ciampa allows him to find a weakness or create a weakness for that matter. And then the selling by Alistair Black of that injury, again, helped tell the story of that injury being the difference between Alistair Black winning and Tommaso Ciampa winning. And so I just love sort of that, again, storytelling becoming a huge part of telling the story of a match to make the match believable. NXT just constantly does this, and it is magnificent. So a really good way to end the night, and of course the shot of both Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano at the end together, both holding up titles. Which is sort of a great moment, because when they initially came in, people were shocked and surprised, and they had been fan favorites their entire tenure in NXT. And to see them finally both have gold, other than the NXT tag titles, I think for any long-term NXT fan warms the heart. But also sort of the great the great telling of that story of Johnny Gargano's descent into darkness, that he's willing to stand side by side by a man who tried to take his career from him and tried to take his wedding ring away from him. Like, there are so many aspects and layers to it, and that's the thing that's amazing. It's like, it's just not a simple story. They're layered stories, and that's what makes them great. So with that, let's move on to the final verdict of the night. So as we go into the final verdict, let's talk about top 3 moments of the night. Number 3, I should say, from third to first. That the Viking entrance at the beginning, great way to start the show and get the crowd hot for the night. Just that Viking entrance was absolutely amazing. Number 2, Bianca Blair. And this is a hard choice, because it was either going to be in this spot, it was going to be the elbow ending of the Riddle Ono match. But the hair braid whip, it's such an amazing maneuver. I could not put it in here. Where Bianca Blair used her I guess extension, or the hairpiece and her long dreads as a whip, and hit Shayna Baszler with it. Excuse me, that dramatic pause. Thank you, Lynn Storm. But no, it's an amazing maneuver, and it was just such a momentum changer in the match. And you could hear it throughout the arena. It was just an absolutely amazing maneuver. And number 1, it had to be something from the Johnny Gargano Ricochet match. And I could pick a million things, but for me, because of the degree of difficulty and the smaller landing zone, the leap over the corner by Ricochet, which I know he does a million times, but it's still amazing to watch. And again, it just had such much more of a degree of difficulty here to pull off. In top 3 matches, I don't think this could be surprising to anybody, but number 3, I have Tommaso Ciampa versus Alistair Black for the NXT Championship. Absolutely great match with some really solid storytelling to tell the injury of the leg to Alistair Black and how that cost him the championship. Number 2, War Raiders versus the Undisputed Era for NXT Tag Team Championship. Just tore the place down with just a barn burner of a match that just felt like a war. And just told a story of a team very much like AOP, but had more experience, more agility, and more speed, and were able to overcome the Undisputed Era. And number 1, if you haven't figured it out yet, Johnny Gargano versus Ricochet for the NXT North American Championship. Like, I mean, when you put a match in the epsilon of matches like Hogan versus Andre at WrestleMania 3, Steamboat versus Savage at WrestleMania 3, Steamboat versus Flair, Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 97. Like, you are talking about hallowed ground. How can that not be match of the night? So, and I think that leads perfectly into what NXT Takeover Phoenix was, which is, once again, to quote Triple H in that last episode of Breaking Ground, you bastards. I said push the main roster. I say make it difficult. I didn't say make it impossible for us. But that seems to be the groove of NXT with every takeover that are looking to say, hold my beer and top the last takeover. And it is an amazing thing to see them be able to do it time and time and time again. With just absolutely amazing, magnificent matches. Not just Gargano versus Ricochet, but, you know, like I said, Ciampa and Black was a great match. Bianca Blair and Shayna Baszler, considering how, I'm trying to say the proper English way to say this, but considering how inexperienced both wrestlers are compared to everybody else, it should not be that good of a match, but it's a real testament to their work ethic and to the ability to teach at the Performance Center. Riddle and Ono blended a real fight in a wrestling match together beautifully. The NXT Tag Team division, burning it down once again and daring the rest of the roster to follow that. Just, again, every match was amazing and daring itself to try to top this. And I don't know what NXT New York is going to do. I really don't know. I have some ideas, but I want to keep the show PG, because that's about what they're going to have to do to top this. An absolutely amazing show. It gets no better in professional wrestling than an NXT TakeOver. An NXT TakeOver Phoenix proved right now it's the king, and you better get ready to bow at its crown. I give NXT TakeOver Phoenix a 5 out of 5, and I cannot recommend NXT TakeOver Phoenix enough. It might be that if you watch one show this year, and I know it's still fairly early, but that's how good this is, this has to be the show you go back and watch. So 5 out of 5. I need to stop because I'll be here all night, Gus. So that's it for this episode of CMG's Wrestling Reviews. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like us here at the Absolution Network on the Absolution Network page here on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe for our videos. And feel free to comment whenever you can. I hope you enjoyed the show. And next time out, well, we have to follow and look at the poor unfortunate bastards that had to follow NXT TakeOver Phoenix. But don't you fret, because there were some fairly good matches there too. We're going to have fun, because next episode it's time to talk about the 2019 Royal Rumble. So until next time, my wrestling fans, please remember that I am the most glorious Jew that ever lived. I am your wrestling rabbi and your undisputed, unchained Jewish champion. So just sit back and bask in my glory. Insert dramatic pause. Whoa.